Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads. Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as always. This is episode 69. Ha. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week out there. I know that we sure are over here at the Drum Shuffle World headquarters. I've got a fantastic episode today, in my opinion. I am going to be joined by my pal, Jerry Pentecost. I have known Jerry now for probably going on close to 3 years. Jerry is just a fantastic drummer, DJ, producer. Jerry just does all kinds of cool stuff. You will know him best, most likely, from his work with either Brent Cobb, Amanda Shires, or with the Americana honors and award shows with the Americana Music Association. So we're going to be joined by Jerry in just a moment after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks. The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the US, Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined in just a moment by my friend Jerry Pentecost. Jerry is a Nashville native, which is kind of weird. It's kind of like a unicorn for a guy to make a living in the Nashville music scene, to be originally from Nashville. So it's kind of cool. He is the rarest of breeds, I guess you would say. But Jerry's just one of the super nice guys in the business, and you will hear him describe himself as a virus in the best way. It just seems like Jerry is everywhere. He was in Modern Drummer here just an issue or two back. He's really starting to come into his own and get the due that he has deserved. He is, again, just one of the nice guys out there, stays super busy with recording live gigs, doing DJ gigs. He's just got his hand in everything in Nashville, and has really come into his own as an Americana drummer, a first call Americana drummer. He's currently out on the road with Brent Cobb. He served for a few years as the musical director in Amanda Shires' fantastic band. That's how I met Jerry, when he was on the road with Amanda. And he's just got all kinds of cool stuff going on. So please help me welcome to the Drum Shuffle, the great Jerry Pentecost. Hey, good afternoon, Jerry. How's it going, man?
Doing well. And yourself?
Man, I cannot complain a bit. Hey, thanks so much for taking some time to come on the Drum Shuffle. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Thanks for having me. I've been stoked about it since you asked. So.
Oh, no. Well, you're going to make me blush. Stop. So, Jerry, we met, gosh, it's probably going close to 2 years ago. We met at,
I think it was 2016. It was It was either 2016 or 2017. So yeah, it was at least around 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean it's been a hot minute, but I caught you playing with Amanda Shires, of course, here in Lexington. Kind of where we're based, and struck up a great conversation after the show. And since that time, you have kind of been everywhere. You are a busy man. Congratulations.
I try to be like a virus in the best possible way. I don't know if there is a best possible way to be a virus, but I want to be. I have like a severe case of FOMO, so like I want to be everywhere as much as I possibly can. But in this industry, you create a lot of friends, and even if you can't play for them, I try to put these nights together where I can where we can. Writers get to write together all the time. Guitar players get to play together, but drummers is a little different, So like I said, I just try to be anywhere and everywhere, as much as possible.
Well, you've got a lot of cool stuff going on that we'll certainly get into over the course of this interview, but as tradition kind of dictates on the Drum Shuffle, I always like to let our listeners know, kind of where you grew up and how you got into drumming to begin with. So why don't you kind of start us at the beginning and tell us, about your childhood and how you became a drummer to begin with?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Nashville. I graduated high school from Beach High School, which is in Hendersonville, which is like a suburb of Nashville. But I've lived in Nashville or the surrounding area my entire life. Like at this point, it's a little more on the Nashville side than the Hendersonville side. I did some middle and high school there. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I knew at that point that music was what I wanted to do. It was mostly convincing my dad, who was pretty stone core on wanting me to graduate college. And at that point in time, I had not had a job for longer than 6 months. So I'm 17 and I've quit every single job that I've had. So I was like, hey, I'm going to leave school after a year and I'm going to enter the workforce. And he just laughed in my face for about 5 minutes. So, and it ended with him saying, you're not quitting school. And so I was like, cool, well, I'm paying for it. So, so that was the decision that I made. But yeah, I was born in Baptist Hospital. And so most people just kind of believe, and I've grown to believe too, that I think I was just supposed to be in Nashville, you can't really control any of those things, so I think I was supposed to be here. I love being a part of the scene. I love the music here. I spend a lot of time downtown now, more on the DJ side of things, but I'm playing down there once or twice a month, and yeah, it never gets old. I mean, the Britneys get old, where the girls are stumbling and vomiting in the middle of the street. That gets a little old, but the other stuff. It never gets old. I love that you can go anywhere at any time of the day and you can always hear some live music somewhere. So I've grown to really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great city.
Sorry, what's that?
I just said it's such a great musical city. I mean, you can always find live music.
Yeah, and there's, there's, if you know the right spots to go, you can find more than just new country or just classic country or, whatever you're looking for. So, I appreciate the diversity, which I think has had a huge effect on me in my playing. Just because you kind of have to be prepared for everything. You might show up to gig and think that you're just going to be playing train beats all night, but then they might want to play, Reelin' in the Years by Steely Dan, or, Signed Sealed Delivered by Stevie Wonder. You just never really know. So this city has really, really, sometimes it's like being a wedding DJ, and then sometimes people are like, you know what, let's play that Vern Gosdin, deep cut jam. And I'm like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
So, but there's only so many beats as a drummer you can play. So it kind of works out in your advantage a lot of times, where most people are shouting chords and keys at each other. And I'm just like, cool, that changes nothing for me.
Right.
So, I'm like, what key is in it? Don't care.
Right, exactly.
But I got my first drum set when I was 15. So I was a late bloomer. I tried to do marching band, but I'm an undercover jock. If there's any sport, like I wanted to excel in it. And so when I was coming up, it was I did 5th grade in Hendersonville too, like going into junior high, and they were, you know, like that was kind of like the start of the marching band, and it was either band or PE. Like you couldn't do both. You had to pick one or the other. And I was like, well, I like hitting people in the face with dodgeball, so I think I'm going to go with PE. So I did PE, and like I probably took PE more than anybody could ever take PE in high school. I took it 4 times, and just twice in my senior year. So I think I took it like 5 times. But yeah, they were like, you won't get a credit for that second time. I was like, don't care. Like I got an empty space there, and I want to take PE again. So, and yeah, you know, kickball, volleyball, soccer, softball, like baseball, you know, like whatever it was, basketball, like I was, you know, always one of the first person to be picked or first ones to be picked. And that was just kind of my thing. But I got my drum set my sophomore year, and I come from a family of basketball players. And so when they saw me and, you know, and like they knew of my name, they were like, okay, so this kid's basically going to be like our Michael Jordan. And I was a disappointment to them because I just wasn't as athletically efficient as my brothers were. And then I hit my growth spurt, and they were like, okay, now we need this kid. And I hit my growth spurt the year I got my drum set. And I was like, nah, man, I'm in a band called the Cool Kids now. Like I don't have time for sports. So, which was an awful first band, but it was with my best friends, and it was cool, something to do in the garage. But yeah, so my brother bought me my next. I have 4 brothers, and the one that's the next oldest, he bought me my first drum set. So I turned 15 in October, and I got it that Christmas. It was like a joint birthday / Christmas present, and I bought it he bought it from a local drummer in town. It was a Thomas Swingstar. It was an awful, awful drum set, but I loved it so much. Somebody stole it later on, but man, like I played on that thing, and it was so awful for so many years. Like I just, I never felt like I was going to get it together, but I never wanted to quit either. Like it was an amazing challenge. So yeah, so I did that for a little bit. Played in local bands, started touring when I was 17. So I'm 15 then. I graduated at 17, was already, like kind of doing like weekends in Memphis and Knoxville and Chattanooga, like just kind of like the regional stuff. And that's kind of it. Like I've pretty much been on the road. Like we started playing bars at 18 and 19. So like I was, getting paid booze and in return for gigs that were making no money, like at 19 and 20. So by the time I hit 21, I had no interest in drinking anymore because I decided that it wasn't acceptable to always get paid in booze because that gets you nowhere real fast. Yeah. And yeah. So that's kind of like the foundation. I didn't really have any training or anything like that. I've still to this point only taken 2 drum lessons, and one of them was from Marcus Finney, who's a great, great, great drummer. Oh yeah. And the other one was from man, I just blanked on his name, and I cannot believe that I did that. Zappa, Phil Collins, he's a Nashville guy.
Chester Thompson.
Chester Thompson, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how I blanked on that name, but yeah, like I had my first lesson was from Chester, and then the second, and these were like lessons within like the last 4 years. So,
wow. Okay.
I've been playing now, for 18 or 19 years. I'm 34.
Yeah. Well, I think what's cool about all that, is in your story is that you made the 180, from sports to drums. And
yeah, I still like to hit people in the face with dodgeballs. Well,
yeah. Who doesn't really? Yeah. Who doesn't like to hit somebody upside the head with a dodgeball? But, my story is very similar in that, I was, a pretty slow, dude that tried to play safety, on the high school football team and was like, yeah, this is going nowhere. And, I was just starting to get into drumming, same kind of thing. It was like, I can do this my whole life. I might have 3 more years of playing organized sports. Right.
Yeah. Like I shoot basketball with a few guys, Margot Price's husband, Jeremy Ivy, Zach Schmidt, like a great singer-songwriter, like a bunch of us, like shoot basketball. And like, I just jammed my thumb like 2 weeks ago. So I'm like, every time I get out there, I'm like, golly, it's a liability. Like I played a gig on Friday and I couldn't any like super fast and intense stuff. I couldn't really do it because I didn't have, like the strength that I needed in my thumb. So, like, I kind of worry about that stuff more and more and more. But I remember as I was younger, like, I did play football for a little bit. And I was always, like, I've always kind of, I'm 6'3.5", and I'm about 150 pounds. So, I'm a size 27 waist. My body was not meant to play football. And, like, I think that was mostly when I told my dad, like, okay, so I'm quitting football and I'm going to go to school. He was like kind of sad about that, but I was like, man, you got to understand, like, look at me. Like, I'm getting slaughtered out there. Like I'm not doing you any favors. Would you rather me just be out there and be awful or, like, be like take another? So he understood, but like when I said I wasn't going to school, so what I ended up doing was paying for my little brother's room and board. He got a basketball scholarship. And I paid for, like some of his tuition and stuff like that for him to go to school. And he got his degree. And I was like, so it's cool. It's kind of like mine too, because I paid for it. So,
there you go. That's one. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it for sure. That's awesome, man. Well, so, you said that you were out kind of on the road at a very young age, kind of doing the bar thing.
Yeah.
And I alluded to it earlier that you're kind of everywhere in Americana now. Did you immediately kind of start into that type of music? And with you being, 34, most of your adult life, there has been Americana music. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, and I remember when, Americana was just country or non-classifiable country, right?
Exactly. Like at this point, like anything could almost be Americana, and it is a very wide variety genre. Like I said, it's a completely embracing, and like the first year I played in the house band for the AMA Awards, Van Morrison was like the lifetime achievement, and I got to play on a tune with him. And I was like, man, like I never really thought about him as Americana, but like when you listen to the records, you're like, yeah, I can see how that could be, how that is Americana, like because it's got the roots and inspiration behind it, and like some of the patterns are very similar to like what people today would consider it. So like for me, like I mean, I'm just gonna be like brutally honest. I hated country music coming up. I grew up in a typical black low income house. And, like it was almost Al Green, Marvin Gaye, and Otis Redding in my house.
Right on.
So, like, I didn't know anything. I think I was about 13 or 14 in the MTV era when I heard Weezer's Buddy Holly. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And my brother, I remember one of my brothers specifically being like, that's white people music. You don't need to listen to that. And I was like, what does that even mean? So when he turned it off and walked out of the room, I turned it back on. And I was like, like that hook is so catchy. Ooh, ooh, and a no, no, no,
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So, like I went to school and I couldn't wait to tell my friends about it. And they're like, you don't know about Weezer? Like, that's old, dude, So like I had a lot of catching up to do. And this band that I toured with earlier on, like I was a rocker when I was younger. I played in this prog rock band called Oliver's Army, which was named after an Elvis Costello tune that would later become, me and the guitar player were the guitar player singer. We're the only ones that made it out of that band that had been a band for like 10 years, like 6 or 7 years before I even joined. We, like the other two guys quit, and we said we should change our name, so we turned into this band called Sound and Shape and kind of kept the same format and got to, a new bass player and a new rhythm guitar player. And yeah, like we were, like more on the lines of King Crimson, Mars Volta, stuff like that, Pink Floyd, like everything like psychedelic and kind of experimental. And I did that until I was about 24, I think.
Okay.
So, and then I, through countless long, and then in that band, I was probably in that band for maybe, so I did all of that for about 10 years. And I was maybe And that, or no, I didn't do that for 10 years. I did it for about 6 years. So that's from like 17 until what is that, 23, 24. So 6 to 7 years. In that time, I played with them for about 3 months before I was like, my room is a mess, but I'm super organized and you know, like everything else. And I'm a very detailed person because as a drummer, you get paid for details. I tell my girlfriend that all the time. She hates it. But you know, like I get paid to observe details and, you know, like little things, you know, like that's what you pick up on because that's what can change a good groove to a great groove. It's the little things. And so, you know, so like after playing with them for 3 months, I was like, this is a mess. I was like, no, I'm booking all the shows from now on, you know, like I'm handling all the advertising. So we would do 260 shows a year and they were all self-booked for 6 years. I did this, all self-booked, all self-promoted, all self-advertised, like everything. Management, I did everything. I'm literally, and like not trying to be cocky, I'm a walking course in master's business or in music business. So,
I mean, that's a huge undertaking, man, for that long.
Yeah. I did that for 6 years and like, you know, so like I could tell you every club and, you know, like on each side of the Mississippi, you know, like anywhere from like the small 200 cap room all the way up to the 1100 cap room. I could tell you which news writer to, you know, to write to get your, you know, your show in the free weekly. You know, I could tell you the radio station for 6 years. Like I had a little book that I kept. I don't even know where it is anymore, but I kept that with me. Like it was, you know, if there was one thing I was going to go to sleep with every single night, it was that book. Like I went to sleep looking at it. I woke up and it was the first thing I looked in every day, like constantly trying to get this band to succeed. And I hit a point where, like I said, where I started numerous amounts of arguments and just, you know, like my relationship falling apart with my then girlfriend and never, you know, like I think at that point we had made enough to pay our cell phone bills. We were making enough to pay 3 $70 cell phone bills. You know, like that's it. And everything was going to the band fund. But like I was immediately getting behind on rent and, you know, like couldn't have any stability. I also, this is my favorite part, I was working at O'Charlie's at this point in time. And if there's anything that's taught me appreciation for anything in life, it's that job. People were so awful to me in that job. I worked there for 4 of the years while I was touring. And like you literally are a slave at that job, you know, and then people will leave you 50 cents and be like, you were so good, and leave you $1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. Like, good thing I don't have a family to feed, you know, but I understand people got to do what they got to do. So I'll like, you know, people ask me all the time, why do you work so hard? And I'm like, cause I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah. Well,
I have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying. And, you know, I have said on this program before, I will say it anywhere people will listen to me. If you got enough money to go pay $20 for a meal at O'Charlie's, you got enough money to leave a $5 tip on your $20 bill. I mean, you just got to do it.
I affirm, you know, like there are 2 rules that I abide by because I love to eat. But, you know, like the number 1 rule is always treat people the way you want to be treated. And number 2, if you can afford to go out to eat, you can afford to tip.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and those rules are basically the same thing. You know, like I try to be more than, you know, like just decent. I try to be super considerate of others because I always want people to treat me the way that I want to be treated. And I try to treat myself at least better than decent, you know. So like, I feel like everybody else deserves that. So I'm slaving away. I'm doing doubles you know, like I'd come home from a tour. We'd be gone for 2 months and I'd come home and I'd work doubles every single day for a month straight. No days off, 30 days straight, working from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I would make $60 in a shift most days, like all day, and come home with $60 in tips.
Wow.
So it was really, you know, like it was really depressing, but I felt like that's just, you know, like every rock documentary you've ever watched is always the band's on tour. You know, like that's what we thought we were supposed to do. We thought we were supposed to be on tour. So I just couldn't do it anymore. I got tired of sleeping on floors. I got tired of sleeping in like weird houses with like weird people, you know, because we couldn't always afford hotels. Like actually we could never afford hotels.
Right.
And you know, you're constantly putting yourself, like one time we were out west and like we couldn't find anywhere to stay. So like we parked our van at a rest stop and slept with the doors wide open because it was so hot outside.
Oh my God.
You know, like there are so many things that I think I had to like hitch a ride with these two Chinese truckers one time in Albuquerque because our van ran out of it decided that it was going to run out of gas, but it actually wasn't out of gas. It ended up being our fuel pump. But like I put myself in so many weird situations that like I just finally was like, you know, it's not like I'm like better than anybody else, and I'm like I'm not going to tour anymore unless I can play with Sade or, you know, like anything. Like I was like, I need to make a drastic change and I got to figure this out. And the only way for me to do that is to leave this band and come off the road. So of course it was like a breakup. And you know, like he was the other guy that I started the band who's a little bitter about it at first, but you know, like we're still friends and we keep in touch. It just, you know, like it sucks when you have to explain to somebody that like the path that y'all are on together isn't the path that's best for you because, you know, like that's why you started the path in the beginning. It's like breaking up with a girlfriend, you know, like this just isn't working. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't really have the answer for it right now, but
yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's
I know it's not working.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the famous story, you know, people that are
it's me, not you.
Yeah, right. But you know, I mean, it's true. People that aren't musicians and aren't in bands, they'll say, what's it like being in a band? And I'm like, it's like being married to 3 or 4 other dudes, you know, for the most part.
Yeah, you're literally, so my current girlfriend now, it's funny because she's, you know, like, well, people are like, what's it like being on tour? Like, I get a text message, they're like, what's it like being on tour? And I send them a picture that somebody took of me falling asleep on the bus or falling asleep in the green room. I'm like, you get sleep whenever you can, wherever you can. Like, most days, like, I don't ever lay down and, like, I'm going to take a nap. Like, I literally fall asleep making a set list or fall asleep, you know, like, trying to listen or chart a track or something like that. Like, that's how I get, you know, like, that's how my body tells me I need more hours in a day. But, like, you know, like, for me, my job, you're working 24/7. You know, like, you're getting it in as much. When we were out with Amanda especially over this last year when we started touring on a bus, I would get in my bunk and I would close my curtain and I would sit up and I would listen to her songs. And as we played through the set, I would make notes on my set list as you know, like what we needed to work on the next day and sound check. And, you know, like if somebody missed something or whatnot, or like if something just felt weird, anything that I felt like needed to be addressed. There were very seldom days where I didn't have to make a note on the set list about something, you know, just because it was all about like trying to create this perfect show, like trying to make this show the absolute best that it could be. You know, like, I mean, I'm not saying that like everything was always awful or anything like that. I'm just saying that there was always something that, and like a lot of times there were things for me, like, okay, like there was too much downtime in between these two songs. We have to fix that, you know, like maybe the story she told was a little bit too long, you know, so like maybe we add some music underneath, you know, like for that particular section, you know, like there was always something. I was always trying to make the show the absolute best that it could be. So, you know, like I would sit in my bunk for, you know, an hour, 2 hours just listening to the set and, you know, like coming up with these things. But yeah, you know, like it's nonstop, you know, like there was a manager that I really, really was a fan for a long time. He managed Billy Idol in the 80s, and he managed Kiss up until they did the Unmasked tour. And he thought it was a terrible idea, and that's when they separated or they parted ways. But he was like, he said something that stuck with me forever, and his name was Bill Aucoin. He said, if we stop talking right now, you turn on the radio, what do you hear? And I said, music. And he said, exactly. It never stops. It never stops.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, right.
Yeah.
It literally never stops. So it's going to keep going with or without you.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I mean, I think when you were in Amanda's band, you know, you were her MD, and you're being a consummate professional by doing that to always try to make the show tomorrow night a little bit better than the show tonight. And, you know,
I don't want it be, automated either. Like she says different stuff, like every single night that, like sometimes she'd be in a really jokey mood. And, like we would all go back, like most of us had a mic on stage. So we would all go back. For a long time, I was single. So like it was, like it was like auction season, like trying to, so the single man of the band, like, and all of a sudden, like the spotlight was on me. And then my girlfriend came to a show and she didn't realize that I wasn't single anymore. It was like, it was fairly new. It kind of happened within like a month of us touring. She was like, so this is what it's been like this whole time before. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay. So.
That's hilarious. Well,
yeah.
Speaking of Amanda, and I hate to jump around so much, but,
yep.
The record that she put out last year, which was called From the Sunset, I think it came out in...
To the Sunset.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Came out August, is that right?
Yeah, so August the 3rd, I believe, was the release date, and then we did August the 12th as like the release show at the Ryman as part of the Americana series.
Gotcha.
And so we did that record with Dave Cobb. I think it was 2 weeks in January of last year, so January 2018. And Dave Cobb produced and played bass on it. Jason Isbell played guitar. Played all the guitars on it. Peter Levin, who's in her band now, was coming from, like being on tour with the Greg Allman Band and Blind Boys Alabama and stuff like that. R.I.P. to Greg Allman. He played keys on it, and then it was me on drums. And that was my first time working with Dave. And it was a very fast pace. Like I learned a lot just from that week that I was in the studio. I was there every other day, but, like I was only actually supposed to be there for that week, but I was mostly there just for, like support. If they needed an extra set of ears, like I ran and got, like lunch one time, she's like a sister to me. So any way I could help. And, that's kind of what I was telling you before. Like I never really like jump into a gig just being like, all right, well, I'm just kind of here to work, like I jump in and I'm all in or I'm nothing, like I don't really I have two, I'm like a light switch. I'm either on or off. I only have two modes of transportation. And I feel like you owe it to people for that, like I can't half-ass anything because like, it's just not in my DNA. Like I just can't do it.
Yeah. Well, and if you're in the studio, the legendary RCA studio where Dave is kind of set up now, and you're working at the foot of the master. I mean, nothing that Dave Cobb touches is crap.
Oh, he's had incredible run of the last couple years, and and like has helped with some amazing records. And so like he's somebody that like I text like from time to time, just input on certain things. But, like he, like he's obviously well sought after and there's reason for that. So I'm super proud of his success and Jason's success and, like everything else. So like, it's really been cool to see all this from, like a fly's view, like kind of just hanging out in the room. So, and luckily, like being able to be a part of this. So when she asked me, I was like, man, I don't care. I know we don't have anything again until April, but like, I don't care what I have to do to, like make it work to be on this record. I'm going to do it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, I mean, I think a lot of people think of Dave as like this great Americana producer, which of course he is. But man, I've had, Michael Miley from Rival Sons on the show. He has done a bunch of records for them. And man, this most recent record that Rival Sons put out is maybe one of the best rock records of the last decade. So
if you ever get a chance to talk to Dave, get him talking on some of the R&B stuff that he's done. Right before we got in there, he was producing a record with Ellie King, and John J.R. Robinson had played drums on it. So the drums were tuned basically to Thriller, like Michael Jackson's Thriller, like that record.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how the drums were tuned, and he was like, don't touch anything. He was like, even if a drum goes out of tune, like just leave it the way that it is, because he was like, I enjoyed his playing on that record so much. And that's the drum sound that you get on To the Sunset. So we started calling Matt Rossbang I came up with it Fleetwood Jackson, because a lot of the grooves that I was playing was in the middle between like Fleetwood Mac and like Michael Jackson. Like that's all, like there was some 4 on the floor stuff that was just like really cool and fun to play. So, we were like, yeah, you need Fleetwood Jackson on the mix.
Well, I really hope you trademark that before you just let that loose in the world, because there's going to be a band tomorrow called Fleetwood Jackson.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, it's such a good record, and it was a little bit of a departure for Amanda, in my opinion. I'm not some music critic, but it was a lot more poppy, I think.
It was a different direction.
Yeah, but it was so good. I mean, first of all, Amanda could sing the phone book, and I would sit there and listen, Yeah.
She's got a voice that commands.
Yes.
And it's subtle, but it's powerful. And, that's what drew me to her. Like, I saw her during Americana Fest a few years before we actually, played together for the first time. And, we played together before I was actually in her band. I used to host a country night, which I'm actually bringing back as a benefit to the rescue mission. But that's a different thing. I'm not going to use this for shameless self-promotion. But I saw her. I was on my way to another gig in this complex that houses 3 venues, Cannery, Mercy Lounge, and High Watt. And she was playing Cannery, and I believe Paul Griffin was playing drums with her. And I remember just seeing her and being like, man, her voice is so great. I was like, well, okay, on to the next gig. I just had to take note, okay, that's Amanda Shires. She can sing and she plays the fiddle. Okay. That's kind of how it is in Nashville, cause you can't possibly keep up with everything. You have to just kind of make mental notes. But I've known Jason for forever. And I think just through constant texting him, hey, just wanted to let you know if Amanda ever needs somebody, I'm around, know, so. And I think it just kind of, the opportunity was created where she did finally need somebody. She reached out. I was booked up. And I told myself and it was right before she had Mercy. And I told myself if she ever came knocking again, I would do whatever it takes. So she had Mercy. And then 3 months later, she hit me up about putting a band together and band leading it. And she was like, is that something you're interested in? Are you still, booked, or what are you doing? And at that time, I had kind of taken a little break. I had no interest in playing drums. The previous artist that I was playing for had kind of burned me a little bit. And, I was in this, nobody cares. And I can't get I can't get the proper respect that I deserve from any artist that I play with. And what her biggest appeal is that she was a side person. So, so she gets a lot of that stuff. But, she's balancing the life of being an artist, being a mom, being a side person, lead player, rhythm player, there's a lot of hats that she's wearing. So, my brain immediately went back to, remember what you said, if she ever came knocking, you would figure it out. And so, at that point, I was just DJing. So I had to sub 9 DJ gigs to do the first weekend with her.
Wow.
And that's a tremendous financial hit, but for me, DJing has become my daytime job, where instead of doing a 9 to 5, which I extremely love it and it's very flexible, but instead of doing a 9 to 5, I would rather just go DJ at a club from noon to 4.
Yeah.
So, and then play drums at night, or rehearse or hang out with my dog, whatever. But yeah, so DJing's not going to get me a Grammy. It's not going to get me on any award show or anything like that. It's literally something I like to do for fun, and I'm lucky enough to get paid to do it. But drumming has always been, where my heart is. So getting back to that record, I think that basically what she told me is, she was like a bird, that song, she said, that's the direction that I always wanted to go. The reference was kind of we want to take this more on a Janis Joplin kind of real rock band kind of vibe. She was like, I don't want to do, but the song structures that she wrote, which I guess you could say that about, Pearl, the Janis Joplin record, were more pop songs. So, it really didn't, you do kind of get that rock edge vibe from the live band performance of it, but at the basis of it, they were pop songs. So that's how we ended up creating this kind of edgy pop record.
Yeah. Well, it's just a fantastic record. And, if you don't have it in your collection, you need to have that record in your collection because it is really, really good.
Yeah, once again, no shameless self-promotion. I was, I was very happy with, what Dave and Matt and Amanda, like what they were able to hear, based on what I was playing. And, it became very clear of, whose role was what, and I would sit down and my role was like, okay, I need to get the tempo and, and I need to have the drum reference ready because he would be like, do you remember this groove on like that song? Like that was really cool. Like, do you think we can work something like that into this track? And so I would just be off to the side. I would write the structure of the song and come up with the BPM and then go to my station and be ready to play, and this was all after hearing the song one time.
Right on. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how Jason's band works too. Jason takes them into the studio and is like, here's a song I wrote,
That's the Dave Cobb format.
Right.
There's no pre-production or anything like that, at least not with the band, because his guys are, they're in the studio 24/7. They're not like, all right, so can we do this pre-production rehearsal so everybody knows the song when we go in and we can nail it in one take? It's like, sometimes that's just how you get the best ideas. So,
yeah.
and sometimes some of the songs we did, we started off recording it one way and then we changed it to another way. So every situation's a little different. Obviously all of Dave's secrets are in his head, I don't want to give too much away, but like I said, there were days too where I thought I was going to get sent home and get replaced, because there were some things that were just a little outside of my scope that I really, really had to dig deep down. And my favorite thing with Dave was that he would, every take, he would tell me, don't choke up on the snare drum. Cause I was hitting, like I said, I'm always going to be a rocker. I was hitting the snare drum too hard, which I've now since then, kind of worked on my technique where I don't have to hit the rim every single time that I, some drummers are just backbeat drummers. And that's just what feels good to them. And it was actually Chester that said that. He was like, man, you're going to have to turn that snare, you're going to have to lean that thing in because you're going to blow me away hitting that rim every single time. So, so after having that lesson with him and then immediately recording on this session, I halfway through the session, I was I'd go home and I'd be like, okay, tomorrow's the day where he doesn't have to tell me.
Right.
Don't choke up on the drum. And on the very last day of the session, it worked. I made it through and I told him, I was like, that was my goal. After you told me 4 days straight, I was like, all right, now, okay, don't choke up on the snare drum. And he was like, I'm proud of you. You learned something, So I think there's valuable information in almost every single situation, musically that you're in. So it was a blessing and, it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of that session. And, Rolling Stone had great things to say about it. And, that's kind of how, it's kind of like being on TV, you almost want to be like, Mom, we made it, when Rolling Stone is like, that was a good record. Then you that's, that's justification, that's the approval that you need it to be like, okay, it was a great record because to me, there's no filler on it. It's all great songs. The energy's great. The production's great. So like I said, it was just an honor and a privilege to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, a couple of things that you mentioned in there about the recording process, which, that I want to mention, when I got to see you live, here in Central Kentucky, and, unfortunately, I don't get to go to a lot of shows because I stay busy myself,
Sure.
But that was one of those special occasions. And, I got there early enough that I got a good angle, where I was up close. It was kind of a smaller venue, standing room only kind of thing. And it was packed.
Yeah.
But I was close enough to the stage to kind of understand the dynamic on stage. And the stage volume was so quiet. It was amazing to me. And you had a lot of tricks in your arsenal, the bandana on the tom heads, things like that. It was very sonically pleasing to see you play live in that kind of semi-acoustic setting.
Well, let me just say that it's not normally like that. Most nights it's pretty pure chaos. But that night maybe I ate my Wheaties that day. I'm not 100% sure. But I said this too. We were kind of talking about it in that Modern Drummer article. that like dynamics was something that I preach, like relentlessly with her band, that like we needed to go up together and we need to come down together. Like there's no like, I'm gonna go up, you stay down. Like the only way that it works is like a chain. Every link has to work together to make this chain work. So, so like her voice, like I said, it's powerful, but it's delicate. So, in the very beginning, because like the guitar player is more of a rocker, like I was more of a rocker, but I have a lot of experience with playing country music with brushes. The gig that I come from was 90% brushes before, so it was all about like trying to treat and create this band based around her vocals, like that. So, like her, it was kind of like the dictator of everything. So, like that, I think that's when I did my most listening, was obviously in the very beginning. And, her, like it grew. And I think by that time that we saw you, like like that band had been playing for a year. I'm pretty sure it was 2017 now. That band had been playing for a year and a half at that point. So like we were, like we had I think we were about to record Austin City Limits. Like we had like a really good, strong like vibe together. And it was great. Like I enjoyed it so much. And, like it obviously when we made this new record and then we picked up another guitar player, got a different bass player, got a keyboard player, like dynamic, like it probably took about 5 to 6 months to get that band like kind of feeling good before, like I was like, okay, like now we can just work on like the little stuff. But, for a long time, you're just covering parts and whatnot. But yeah, so I was able to remove the bandanas, like we got a little bit louder, like certain things kind of changed a little bit, but my dynamic with her was always like, cause, like her fiddle is, like probably the most attractive thing that's happening on stage. The things that she can do with the fiddle is, like it's pretty phenomenal. And, like the fact of, like the lyrical presence and, her voice and everything like that. But, like a lot of the parts and everything, like it's kind of dictated by what's happening from the drums. So like I'm watching her. I did about 2 weeks touring with Wanda Jackson, the rockabilly icon, Wanda Jackson.
Awesome.
I was the band lead for that gig too. And the way I got that is I was out on tour with this guy, Johnny Fritz, who used to go by Johnny Corndog. And so we were the opening support, and they reached out and asked if we would like to, like be the band. And Johnny was like, do you want to like help me like lead this band? And I was like, sure. And then we kind of got into it. He was like, you should just do it. And I was like, okay. So, so like I was in charge of like kind of getting everybody's parts together and just listening to the show, making sure that everything was flowing the way it was supposed to be flowing. And like she pulled me aside and she said, there are 3 things you need to know. I'm going to be giving you signals, and they're like baseball signals, and I'm going to throw them up behind my back. She said, if I give you a thumbs up, that means the song is too slow. If I give you a thumbs down, and this is like in her like old like sweet lady voice, if I give you a thumbs down, then that means the song is too slow, And she was like, and if I throw up a fist, that means go to the outro because I'm not going to make it. Because she's like, like 80 years old.
Right.
So like that's the closest to playing with somebody like James Brown that I've ever experienced in my life. Because like if I wasn't watching her tush the whole time for looking for those signs, like like she could cut to the outro and I not even be paying attention. So that really helped me with like Amanda, because like she and her body language, she gives these signals, and like like I got to the point to where they were like second nature. And, like we went up together, like I said, preaching dynamics, we went up together and we always went down together, and we were always listening together. So, or listening to each other.
Well, I mean, it was just such a great show, that I caught, and the band was, firing on all cylinders. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember that show. It was great. That, and the Burl was fairly new at that point too, I feel like. So it was an exciting show to be in that room too. I think everybody was pretty excited about it. So.
Yeah, it was a great show, and I just felt so, blessed and honored to get to meet all of you guys afterwards. And this is so cool for me to get to have you on the show now that, now that the show is a thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of cool. One of the other things that I really want to touch on, I'm flipping through the channels, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, and the Americana Honors were on. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, I'm going to have to watch this, right? Of course, I'm a member of the Americana Music Association, but I never go down for the crowd crush. You know what I'm saying? But I flipped on the telecast and I was like, oh my God, Jerry is the house drummer for this thing. This is fantastic. But you've got Don Was playing playing bass next to you. I mean, tell me a little bit about that gig, because that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so, you know, like what's funny is, and I said something, I have a buddy that writes for Rolling Stone, that I like had made friends through, you know, like through playing with Amanda, and he wasn't the one that like wrote the article or anything like that, but like I just, you know, like we kind of kept in touch every time he comes to Nashville, you know, like I have like a respect kind of thing. Like if I feel like it's something worth his time to like check out or listen, you know, like I send it. But for the most part, I try to keep like a professional relationship with him and, you know, not kind of exploit, you know, like our acquaintance friendship kind of deal. But I was out playing a show with Amanda in 2017. Yes, early 2017. Like I think it was June. It might have been May. Not really sure. But it was in New York, and it was put on by Americana Fest. And it was like a series that they were doing out there. And I met Jed Healy that time for the first time. And he came up to me and he said, I've wanted to meet you for a really long time. And I said, really? You know, like, because for me, you're just putting these performances, I'm giving it my all, you know, like hoping that I can connect with somebody on some way or another. Like, I know I can't go up personally and be like, did I connect with you? Did we have a thing? You know, like, it's not like on, you know, like on Craigslist, like you were in the owl looking at watermelons and I was looking for the perfect bag of spinach, you know, like, it's just more or less like you give your all and you just really, really hope that, you know, like what you put out, like other people got that energy and they loved it, or, you know, they didn't like it, like whatever, you know, like you put it out there, you gave it what you could, and that's all that matters. And you leave it out there on the stage. And you try to do that every single time. And so he gave me his card. We kept in touch. And like so like a month later, we're playing Red Rocks for the first time, opening up for Jason and Frank Turner. And I get a call from Buddy Miller, and he's like, hey, this is Buddy Miller. Like, I do some stuff around, like, he needed to explain to me on the voicemail, like, who he was. I was like, are you kidding, Buddy Miller? Like, I know exactly who you are.
Yeah, no doubt.
And yeah, like, I called him back immediately. Like, I couldn't hold it in. And he was like, man, you know, like, I was sitting here and I was talking to, you know, Michelle and Jeb, and I was wondering if you would like to be the house drummer for the Americana Honors and Awards ceremony this year. And like before he could even get it out of his mouth, I was like, yes, don't care how much it pays, don't care how much work it is, like whatever, like I am there. What do you need? Give me there tomorrow. Like I'll fly from Denver. I'll figure it out, you know. But
no doubt.
And so like that was, and Chris Wood was in that band, who is one of my favorite absolute. Like if they're the top four, he's in that top four. He's probably in that top three of bass players that I've ever played with. And it was just an amazing experience. Like I learned so much from Buddy that first year. So, you know, like for me, I'm trying to remember the last song that we played was, I think it was it Don Williams, Tulsa Time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe.
That was so like as the credits are wrapping, that's what we played. And as soon as I hit that last note, and I do my after party at Roberts every year, as I was walking, carrying my gear from the Rhyme and across the hall or across the alley in the Roberts, I'm sitting there thinking, how do I get in this band again next year? Like I'm already prepared for next year. Like what do I need to do? You know, like did it go well? You know, like did people like it? You know, like did I play well? Like it was so much, and it was such a long day that I didn't, you know, like I didn't have time to process anything. And then also I had to play for another 4 hours on a completely different set, a show that I'm hosting myself. So like, you know, like so I had to get in that mode. And I would later, you know, so it was a cold, you know, like other than staying like fairly busy, like doing stuff around town, like it was radio silence for, you know, until around April. So, you know, so that's September. I get a call from Jed in April, and he's like, hey, I need you to hold May 15th for me. And I'm like, okay. You know, like that's when I say, you know, like that family, you know, like if there's one relationship that I hold strongly, you know, like it's my relationship with him and Michelle, or, like just, I mean, the Americana Honors and Awards, like crew, and, like Sarah and I'm trying to think of, I think those were really the mostly the ones that I've interacted with, Sarah, Jed, and Michelle. They're so great. And, so like anytime they ask me to do anything, I'm like, no, it's not an option to me. Like I try to make it work. I don't care if I have 7 gigs that day, I will make it work. And then when I told him I would hold it, he was like, okay, great. Cause you've been nominated for Instrumentalist of the Year. And I was like that blew, I was going to Walmart to get toilet paper. And that just like blew my mind. Like I got my dog on my chest. We're about to walk into Walmart. And I'm just like, man, like you're walking into Walmart, kind of a nobody. And like you're coming out like as an Instrumentalist of the Year, like nominee. Like it's just like mind blowing to me. So I went to Taco Bell to celebrate. And then, like, so we did the ceremony, and as I was doing the ceremony, as I was getting ready, I was trying to figure out, it was like, if there's one person that like this thing, I think Buddy Miller has won that award 7 or 8 different times.
Yeah.
And I was like, if there's one person I can learn any and everything from, it's him. So he was the first person I reached out to, and I said, would you like to be a part of whatever? I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do for this ceremony, but I was asked to put a band together and do something. And unfortunately he was out of town. And to me, that was an omen that I was like, you know what? Like I need to use my guys, the guys that I play with all the time, my top guys, like whenever I get asked to do something, like they're the dudes that I call. And that's Adam Meisterhans on guitar, Robbie Kroll on keys, Garrett Manzo on bass. And still kind of fluctuates, but for the song that we decided to do, which was 2 Mile Pike by Barefoot Jerry, I used Russ Hicks, who played on that recording. Sorry, phone's going off. For me, I was just like, okay, like this is, like this is the thing. This is what we need to do. But when I reached out to Buddy, he was like, hey, by the way, he was like, thank you for like offering. I'm so glad, or I'm so sorry that I'm not available, but would you want to be in the house band again this year, by the way? And I was like, once again, like a deep sigh of relief. I was like, yes, I get to do it again, The campaigning like worked, and all the good vibes and the prayers and the thoughts, like fast forward from May to September, where I'm just a nervous wreck because every day I've thought about, the voting ends at the end of May. So you have like 10 days after the nomination ceremony until like the voting ends. And then you just sit and wait until September. So was that May, June, July, August, September? That's 5 months. 5 months of waiting, not knowing. And, it's like somebody out there knows, but like I didn't know. And I thought I had a pretty good, chance at it. And Molly Tuttle won this year, and she totally deserved it. She had a great year, put out a great record. So like I'm going up on stage, and it was I think it was like either the first or the second award to be given out. And it was just like, I sweat probably more at that gig than I've ever sweat on any other gig in my entire life, just because every time we got off stage, I was like, almost like dry heaving in the corner, just like it's coming up, but fast forward, it was funny. We show up for rehearsals. Rehearsal is always on Tuesday. The show's on Wednesday. And I meet Don Was for the first time. And I'm like, hey, I kind of tell everybody this, if there's something you want to hear differently, if you want me to play something differently, or, if you have any input, whatsoever, like I want to get it right, please don't hesitate to ask. And he was like, you kidding? You sound great. And I was like, that's all he ever really said to me the whole night. And I was like, okay, like if it's good enough for him, then it's got to be good enough for me. But He was so great to play with, so great to work with. And once again, and he's in that top 4 caliber for sure. So it's such a fortunate, blessing in a situation to be in. So,
well, it's well deserved, Jerry. I mean, it really is. I mean, you're just doing such good work out there. And, here we are getting close to the end of our time together, and we haven't even touched on the fact that you're out on the road with Brent Cobb right now, doing shows with Chris Stapleton. I mean, my God, man, the stage doesn't get much bigger than that, right?
Yeah, he's come off of a phenomenal couple years too, man, and I'm just really excited that that he saw something in Brent and Brent's music, and and that Brent was gracious enough to allow me to come into their fold, and and that I could be the guy for them, and I think it's going to be a great year. I know we're going to try to record a record, and yeah, we're going to do some more of these Chris Stapleton dates as direct support, and I'm looking forward to like hanging out. I've become like you were talking about, I call him Bad Chad, Chad Gamble. Like those guys have become like family to me, and like I try to talk to them as much as possible when we're on the road with them. I spend a lot of time with them, and like it's that's what you want. Like you want a very family like like situation when you're on the road, because like you are family. You know? Like it's that's where I was getting at earlier, and I think I like lost train of thought. But like my girlfriend's like, I don't know how you can do it, because I was like, yeah, it's basically like I have 7 roommates, 7 to 8 roommates. When I was on tour with Ron Pope, we had 13 people on the bus, so every bunk was taken. 12 bunks.
Oh my God!
I had 11 roommates, So, and I like to plank and like work out and stuff like that. So like when you've got 13 people on a bus and you're trying to like hold a plank for 2.5, 3 minutes at a time in the middle of a bunk alley, like you're bending and weaving so people can get over you, under you, by you, like I would stay up until 4 every morning to wait until everybody else fell asleep to plank. So that way, but I also like, I operate on about 3.5, 4 hours of sleep almost every single night. So,
well, the hard thing about having 13 guys on a bus where you don't have a junk bunk, I mean, it's like you almost have to have one bunk empty to put all your stuff in. I mean, that's
backpacks and luggage and, like that weird keyboard that doesn't need to come in, but, like for some odd reason needed to go on the bus. Yeah. When there's no junk bunk, it's definitely, but he was, like really, really helpful with a lot of artists like to use the back lounge, like with Amanda, because there were 9 of us total in the crew. So 6 of us in the band, including her, and then merch person and tour manager. So that's 8. So we had two junk bunks because there were 2 condo bunks, and then like she kind of used the back lounge for her like area to get ready, and stuff like that. So like having those 2 junk bunks like really made a big deal. But with Ron, because there were so many people, like the back lounge was common, just like the front lounge. So like any space you could find was like open. But like the deal that I made, because I was the tallest person in the band, I was like, yo, I cannot put my backpack in my bunk because like my legs, like I'm hanging out of the bunk, like my legs just will not fit in here. So, so like they, like everybody's, like kind of understanding of like the space and, like I said, it's just a level of consideration and, like making the best of it. But, like she was like, so like I sleep in my underwear. And I don't have pajamas like most people. I did wear sweatpants, like any other time. Like, so I wasn't just always walking around in my underwear on the bus, because ladies are present. You always want to be respectful. But, like she was like, so like, say you got to pee in the middle of the night. Like, do you get up and like get fully dressed? And I was like, no, you just go to the bathroom because nobody else is up. It's not like you're going to walk out in the front lounge to go to the bathroom and like everybody's going to be partying at 6:30 a.m. Like it's like one big slumber party. And, if you're respectful, then that's the way to go. So like I said, I always try to keep my things. I think that's more of a strong rule that will keep you in a gig than anything else. It's just be considerate of everyone's space, because like, it's not just about you, it's about the team. And honestly, like if there is any advice that I had overall, it's that, like if you keep thinking team first, because it doesn't matter how good you are. Like some of the best players that I know work at Calhoun's downtown, like this. Like it's more or less about like the team vibe. And that's funny to me because the first thing that Amanda said when she asked me to put a band together in 2016 is she said, they don't necessarily have to be the best players. They just need to be able to hang. She was like, who would you put in a band and be able to hang out with, like one day at a time? And that add up to a month at a time or 2 months at a time. Like who can hang, like that's what I'm mostly interested in, and no sandals. And I was like, cool. So like they have to be able to hang and you don't want to see their feet. Great. I can do that.
Well, I mean, it's so important, the great Billy Ward, I heard him say once, he was like, you got to be able to give good bus. It's not, it's not about your paradiddles. You got to be able to give good bus.
at the end of the day, it really has so little to do with like playing. Like I was also thinking about, I've gotten more gigs, like sometimes they're not always the gigs that you want to get, but I've gotten gigs by just like, like I worked the door at a bar, for 4 years, after, like kind of after the Charlie's I was like self-employed there for a little bit. I tried it and I didn't make it. So I had to get like a couple of real jobs here and there. But like I would be like hanging out late and they'd be like, you play drums, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, cool, you want to do a gig this week? And I'm like, sure. Like never heard the music, didn't know who the person was, like they just came in, I carded them. I was practicing on my practice pad in between the time of, like people coming in and so like people kind of like take notice of those things. But it's funny, like your vibe, your energy, like I don't want to get all like gypsy on it and, like be like, yeah, aura, man. But like the energy that you put out, like has so much more to do with your current state than anything else. Like I can practice and be so great because, like honestly, like I think that I just kind of like lucked out. Like I haven't really been doing anything that's like phenomenally incredible or anything like that. Like I just happen to be a dude that likes to work and I'm in the dark with all these other guys and somehow like the flashlight just, like was pointed in my direction. And, so like I'm extremely thankful for, like the presence and whatnot. And for me, it's, like I said, it's about the people. So I'm going to continue to keep striving and trying to create scenarios and put out quality entertainment, like what I would want, like what's suitable for me. And like I say, I think about that when I'm setting like a price for a show or anything like that. I'm like, would I pay $10 for that? And if I wouldn't, then I lower it,
Yeah.
I pay $5 for that. If not, then it's free, so like, I honestly want to, Nashville's one of those places. I remember going out and I was just going to put up some posters one night and Chris Scruggs was playing and the Kenny Vaughn Trio was playing, two of Nashville's most premier, musicians. And I was like, how did I not know this was going on? And I was like, oh yeah, it's Nashville. Like this kind of stuff is happening every night.
Every day.
Like it's impossible to keep up with.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm just thankful to be around it and like to somewhat be a part of this scene, like not on that caliber, like maybe one day, but yeah, I'm just thankful for any of it.
Well, you're certainly getting there. And, I will just say this along the lines of the energy that you put out. My personal experience with you, Jerry, was the energy that you were putting out the night that I got to catch your show with Amanda was, hey, walk up and say hello. You know what I mean? You did not have the rock star thing about you at all. And, if I recall, I think you kind of just sat down at the bar and ordered a water or a Diet Coke or something. I can't remember exactly, but we kind of sat there
I ordered a buttery nipple.
Yeah,
that was a drink that we kept teasing them about earlier in the day.
I got you. But I mean, we just sat there and talked for like probably 35, 40 minutes after the show. And it was great. And we exchanged information, the Nashville handshake, exchanged business cards. And, here we are 3 years later. You're just doing so much incredible stuff. And I just want to say, you are welcome on this program anytime. So when you get your new record done with Brent Cobb, I want you to come back and talk about that process and everything that you have going on. But you're making a lot of really good waves, and nothing but the best for you, man. I hope you continue working as much as you want. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like I said, you're a lot of times I'm just working with my head down, like not really thinking, like subconsciously I'm thinking of the big picture, but like I'm putting it, like everything's coming from my heart and I'm really, really hoping that other people are like picking up on that. So it's nice to see that, like that people are, like that it's translating well, because it's kind of like, have you ever heard the Stones record, Goat's Head Soup?
Of course.
Okay. So, I befriended Bobby Keys before he passed away, and the way that I befriended him was I asked him, I was like, I put a band together and I wanted to do Sticky Fingers, and he was like, I played on all that stuff, so yeah, like when do you want to do it? And I told him when I wanted to do it. And he was like, okay, great. You know, like, this is what I charge. And I said, oh boy, I don't know if we can afford that. He said, well, what do you think you can afford? And, you know, and I told him a price, and he was like, don't ever tell anybody that I did a show for you for that cheap. He was like, I know you guys are kids, and, you know, like, and you're up and coming. He was like, and I've been there before. And he was like, that's the only reason I'm doing it. And so, like, from that day on, I was like, this rock legend, you know, like, the guy that's played with everybody on everything, you know, like, taking a chance on us, like, you know, like, showing up. This could be a total train wreck or a nightmare, you know, like, but he showed up to, you know, like, do it. Man, we packed the house that night, like, mostly obviously because of his name, and it was great. And, like, I felt good, like, paying him, and, you know, like, and then there on, you know, like, people were like, yo, can I get Bobby's info? Because I want, you know, like, I want to play on a record. And, you know, like, I would reach out to him and be like, hey, is it cool if I, and, you know, he'd be like, this is what I charge. Like, if they can afford that, then, you know, pass the information on, you know. But, like, we built up, like, a friendship all the way up until he passed. But after we did that record, and after a couple of times of, you know, like, referring, you know, like, people for him, you know, for session stuff, he called me and he was like, I bet you guys won't do Goat's Head Soup. And I was like, I bet you we will. So, like, we scheduled a date to do it. And, you know, like, he charged me the same rate. And boy, do none of those songs translate well live.
Yeah.
Like, they are so, like, that song, that record, those structures are all, there's no consistency. Like, there's no, like, okay, this measure ends here, or this, you know, verse ends here, and, like, all the verses are saying, they are all over the place. And as a drummer who loves structure, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But, you know, like, I just remember being like, that's not a record that you do live. Like, after we did it, and, like, we made it through okay. It wasn't the best. It wasn't like Sticky Fingers where, like, we crushed it. And it's like that one, like, I left and I was like, well, I think people got their money's worth. But, like, if I had to do it again, I definitely wouldn't. But, you know, like, for me, it was a challenge. And, you know, and it was a challenge set by him. So, like, from that point on, I was like, okay, so not everything translates well live. So, you know, like, you never really know. Once again, it just kind of goes back to the whole thing. Like, I play for myself, you know, like, giving it my all, but, you know, like, it's the energy that I'm able to feed off of, the fans and, like, the friends and, you know, like, the environment that allows me to do what I do. And I just want to give my most to them because I feel like I owe them that much, if not so much more, because it takes a lot to get out nowadays and go to a show. So anytime anybody shows up, it doesn't matter. And I've had this mentality my entire life. If it's one person or it's 2,500 or it's 10,000, like, I'm going to give the same caliber performance. There is no automated, like, okay, let's just get through this shit. Like, you know, like, this is what we came to do.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it shows in your playing. I mean, I can't say enough good things about you as a human being or as a musician. I mean, you're salt of the earth, good people, Jerry. And
I appreciate it.
Oh yeah,
like
man.
I said, I'm the Lil Wayne of country music, man. I just can't really help it.
It's all good, brother. It's all good.
I would tag that in there because I know that's how some people, like you were saying earlier, you know, like, it's like, you know, you say my name and you might not reference it, but it's like the black guy with the dreads and the white glasses, like, oh yeah, like, I know that guy.
Well, it's fantastic. Yeah. If you ever see a dude with really big white glasses at your local donut shop, that's Jerry. Yeah,
that's me.
Go say,
even have to ask.
Go say hi to him. And, you know, when I do my intro for this episode, I'll explain the donut reference.
Yeah. That was my favorite part about the Modern Drummer article is, like, they, you know, like, me and Jeff were just, like, kind of cutting up in the beginning, and he was like, you know, like, he describes himself as just a weird dude looking for donuts. And I was like, that's basically my life. Like, I'm wandering around aimlessly, like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, except for donuts. That's basically how it is.
It's so good. So good. Yeah. Well, Jerry, man, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's an open invite. Come back anytime. I really do. I really do mean that. But thanks for doing it, man.
So it was my pleasure, and it's such an honor and a privilege to speak on the podcast. And as soon as I get some info on this Brent record, you know, like, how that's going to go down, and hopefully I make the cut to make it on there. You know, like, I'll definitely let you know, so that way, because since it's been a couple years, or it's been a year and a half since I've recorded with Dave, I'm curious to see like how this. Every artist is different, so every process is different. So I'm excited for like what's in the near future. I just closed on a house today, so I know that's going to keep me super busy for like the next month. But we start back up with Brent in June, and I'm ready for the rest of the year. I'm so ready to play some more and be out there. So.
Yeah, fantastic, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be looking for you, okay?
Sounds great.
All right, man. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, till next time.
All right, guys and girls, that is going to wrap up episode 69 of the Drum Shuffle. Thank you so much for tuning in. We simply cannot put this show out every week without you guys listening in and week out. As always, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're using to listen in. It helps us more than you'll ever know. If you're into helping out the Drum Shuffle, send a link to a friend. The web address is thedrumshuffle.com. You can find more information on me over at jamieeads.com. There's all sorts of social media links there that you can click on and follow us through those social channels as well. And of course, our email address is thedrumshufflepodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you, and we do answer every single email that we receive throughout the week. Next week, I'm going to be joined by the great Matt Slocum, just a fantastic new record out. As a matter of fact, I just got my hands on the vinyl copy of that. Matt sent that to me, and it's much appreciated. But I am going to be joined by the great Matt Slocum next week, so you're certainly not going to want to miss that. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate you doing so. So until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.